Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Diffusing Dynamite. My name is Joseph Casciato, and my guest here today and my co-host, Gavin.
Yo, how's it going? We're really pumped to be here on the special Diffusing Dynamite for the 1 year anniversary edition of AEW. It was an all right show tonight, and we're going to break it all down for you as usual. We are happy to be showing you the faces behind the words from the
It's
weekly series on the intermission.
a whole new look for us. We're getting a little
Yeah,
more personal
exactly.
this week. All right, so to start off the show was the tag title match with FTR defending against Best Friends. I think this was a pretty solid match, wouldn't you say so?
Yeah, I was really into it. It was cool, I guess, because I guess it's the second time since Best Friends has challenged for the titles. And I don't know if we'll see them as champions anytime soon, but I like how they're one of those teams that you can like plug in a championship feud and it's like legit. Like there were times in this match where I was pulling for Best Friends, and there was times in this match where I was like, oh, hopefully FTR wins so we can get potentially a feud with the Young Bucks. But yeah, overall, FTR's on a really good streak of matches, and I don't know why. It seems like every match since they've had where they won the tag titles at what was it, All Out. It
Yeah,
just seems like every match they've had since then has been better like than that match. Like I enjoyed their championship title win, that match against Kenny and Hangman, but then they faced SCU, which was a really, really good match. The match against TH2 is okay, but this is also another really good match from FTR. So it'll be
they
interesting to
continue
see
to
if they can
improve.
top it again.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
continue to improve
exactly.
every single week. It's ridiculous how talented these guys are, and they really are a top team in professional wrestling. Best Friends continue to show too that they're such a easy babyface team to love, and they put on great matches. So there's nothing wrong with them. Like, just always being in that title scene. I'm not going to complain.
Yeah, Trent is also such a good underdog. Like there's times in the match where he like gets down and you're like, oh, there's no way these guys can come back, and then Trent will like have a fiery babyface comeback. But yeah, I love Best Friends, and I hope that eventually when there's I think AEW will eventually have a trios title just because it seems like that's something they would do. I hope Best
Yeah,
Friends are the first team to hold that title eventually.
yeah, I agree with you on that. But to follow this matchup later on in the show, there was announced that next week there's going to be a fatal four-way number one contenders match to determine FTR's challengers for Full Gear. So the four competitors from this match are Private Party, Butcher and the Blade, your favorites of Dark Order, John
Let's
Silver,
go, John Silver and Alex Reynolds.
and then the Young Bucks. So I mean, I think it's pretty clear who's winning this fatal four-way next week. The
Yeah,
Young
it's pretty
Bucks.
obvious that the Young Bucks are going to walk away with a victory next week. I like how they were playing on the fact that it was around this time last year when AEW had the inaugural championship tag team championship tournament and Private Party upset the Young Bucks. So that was a nice little bit of storytelling that they leaned into. And then obviously like Silver and Reynolds are just so like Silver is so over right now on the internet that they had to throw him in that match because like literally anytime Silver does something on TV these now like people will pop for it. So I'm glad to see he's getting some recognition.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm expecting like some pretty good things from this match. But yeah, in the
Yeah.
outcome, the Bucks are gonna have to go over, and we're gonna
Yeah,
finally see
I
the
think
Bucks
it'll
versus
yeah.
FTR.
That'll be a great match too, especially because you were saying like me and Joseph were talking during the show, and I think that like Full Gear will end with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, the Elite, standing tall.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's gonna be a full-on destruction for them. I think the show has to end with this is my personal fantasy booking. Mox retains over Eddie Kingston, and then Omega comes out to attack, and he's joined by the Bucks to just absolutely destroy Moxley.
That'd be great. I think another interesting wrinkle here is we saw on BT this week there was a scene where Hangman had like left his phone in a pumpkin after he was going on a drunken spree of smashing pumpkins with Brandon Cutler. And someone picked it up and like sent Matt Jackson a message saying this friendship is over after Matt had texted saying, "Hey man, like let's talk this out." So it'll be interesting to see if Full Gear ends with the Bucks standing with Kenny or if they'll have already discovered because I think where this story is leading like the Bucks are going to find out that Kenny took the phone and was like trying to make sure that they liked him more than Hangman. So it'll be interesting to see, I think, if we get to that before the pay-per-view or after where like the Bucks are like, oh man, why did we side with Kenny at the pay-per-view and he's the guy who did this? But that's a little bit down the road.
There's so much booking with this. I like it can go so many different ways. It shows how great of storytelling AEW is, and they really shine in that category. But we'll see where it goes because I'm not. I expect them to side with Omega, but I'm still not 100% sold that it's not going to be them siding with Hangman either.
Yeah. And then I think a lot of the criticism last year people had with the Young Bucks and Kenny and Cody was that they worked too much to put themselves over for other people. But now that they're in year two, I think the Young Bucks have to win the titles here. Like they can't keep
Yeah,
building themselves up and then losing, because eventually, like, they are the best tag team in the world, I think. But eventually, if they keep losing, like, casual fans and people who just jump out and be like, why are these guys the best tag team if they keep losing in tag team title matches?
So if they do end up winning the Fatal 4-Way next week, do you have them beating FTR at Full Gear?
Yeah, I think they'll beat FTR Full Gear.
I mean, I'm not fully sold on that yet either, but like I expect them to be standing tall, but it's hard to
Yeah,
believe
I don't know.
FTR's reigns
I
in.
feel like it makes sense because like FTR's had a great reign, and I think sometimes like especially because AEW's had these really long championship reigns on the men's side, I think it would be okay if they like did a little flip flop with the titles and then had the Young Bucks go on a long run and then they could meet FTR again somewhere down the line.
Another possible idea is me and you were talking about this earlier. We expect the Bucks possibly to screw Hangman in his match. Hangman could return the favor and screw them out of the titles at Full Gear.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it'll be interesting to see what if I think Hangman will be involved some way, but we'll just have to wait and see how.
Okay, so yeah, next up on the show we can get into was MJF's big announcement, his career-altering announcement, which ended up being that he kind of sort of maybe wants to join the Inner Circle. So what do you think on that? Do you want to see him in the Inner Circle?
I think I would be okay with him in the Inner Circle as long as it leads to like this kind of MJF power trip where he tries to undermine the members of the Inner Circle, breaks them apart, and it leads to a match one-on-one, which we thought we were going to get next week when he asked Chris Jericho if he wanted to go one-on-one, but turns out they're going for a steak dinner. But I think the most logical way this feud is going to go is it'll be MJF versus Sammy eventually. We'll get that because they've had this ongoing storyline where MJF delivered jackets, Inner Circle jackets to everyone last week and didn't get Sammy one. And then on this week's show, he gave Sammy a jacket, but it was too big. So I think eventually we're going to get an MJF versus Sammy match. And they've also been teasing Wardlow versus Jake Hager for quite some time. So
I want to see that.
Like a big hoss fight. And I'm not too keen on like seeing Jake Hager wrestle these days, but Wardlow can go. And I think eventually when we get there, it's going to make for an interesting story. But yeah, MJF joining the Inner Circle would be something I'd be interested in, only if it leads to him versus Jericho down the line.
Yeah, I want to see him join the Inner Circle and eventually find a way to have all the Inner Circle members turn on Jericho and he takes over. Because I think Jericho, it's time where he's like going to slow down a bit. I mean, we can only assume. So he's not going to be on a weekly, like he's not going to be there weekly. So MJF could take over as that leader of the Inner Circle. We could have a heel MJF battle of babyface Jericho, which is something we've never seen a babyface Jericho in AEW yet.
That's true. Yeah, I think one of the other things you have to think about is if MJF joins the Inner Circle, what's happening to our boy Wardlow? Like, I know he's in this singles eliminator tournament, and I think if Hangman gets screwed before the final, I think it's going to be Wardlow and Kenny in the final. But it'll be interesting to see what they do there because I guess like they could just abandon Wardlow, but I would also like to see him, like Wardlow joining Inner Circle, and maybe they have like an Inner Circle Civil War where Wardlow flips sides and sides with Jericho, and maybe they have some guys switch around. But it's another wrinkle there
Wardlow
too.
seems to have some talent, yeah.
Yeah, I really like him. A lot of people say he reminds me of Batista, and I can kind of see it, but I think he's sort of like something in his own. Like he's a really athletic guy for a big man. So
yeah, it's a new type of character we haven't seen before.
Mm-hmm.
I'm into it though. I'm into it.
Yeah, facts.
And then next up, we'd have to talk about the worst part of the show, in my opinion. Would you agree?
Are we going to the TNT title?
TNT title match.
Yeah.
Cody and Orange Cassidy put on a snooze fest. It just didn't click at all. It seemed like there was some problems to it. Like, I don't know what happened, but they weren't on the same page. It was slow. It just had nothing to it. And the finish ultimately was a 20-minute time limit draw. What did you think of that?
I think it's like I've been watching a lot of the G1 Climax in New Japan where draws happen, and AEW has only had one draw in its history so far, and that was between Cody and Darby Allin. So like I'm not surprised Cody got another draw because it's like Cody gets the accolades, but I would have appreciated the draw more if it was like they actually fought to a draw. And the last 5 minutes, it seemed like they were working that way. Like you could say, oh, these guys like fought, gave it their all, left everything in the ring. Like here's a draw. But when Justin Roberts announced that there was 30 seconds left, Orange Cassidy was just standing there. Like he wasn't going for the kill. He was just standing there, like looking around, charging up, waiting for Cody to stand up. And I think that's what took me out of the finish because if you're going to have it go to a draw, at least have them fight till the end instead of one guy standing there for 15 seconds. Like it's very obviously waiting for them to count down to 10. And yeah, it's a draw. We're going to get a rematch in 2 weeks because
Or that was the horrible booking
yeah,
decision.
it's the first. Yeah, it's weird booking, like the first ever championship rematch, and I know that we're supposed to be getting because they announced during the match that Darby Allin will challenge for the TNT title at Full Gear, but I would really like to see them do like a ladder match or something where they have Brody, Cody, uh,
Really?
Orange, and Darby, like all four of those guys,
Wow, that'd
because
be
yeah, I think you were gonna mention too that Dark Order was sitting ringside, and that's another layer to this too.
yeah. It's obvious that Brody Lee's not completely out of the TNT title picture yet. So maybe on our predictions on the intermission Twitter, I had said that I expected Brody Lee to demolish both men and end this match in DQ. Maybe that's what happens in 2 weeks now.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I want Cody versus Darby, but now that there's this rematch coming in 2 weeks, it doesn't seem like they're giving the Cody versus Darby feud that we all want time to build,
Mm.
which I think is the most important. So if they're gonna give us Cody versus Darby, which will be a really good match, and they have good chemistry together, why not take it to the next level and just throw all four guys in there who have been involved in the TNT title picture? Because a lot of times, like AEW only has 4 pay-per-views a year, and it's like a new season per se of AEW after a pay-per-view, so they might as well like throw every guy who's been involved in there, have a great multi-man match, and then start fresh after the pay-per-view and put some new
Yeah,
guys in the scene
definitely.
potentially.
Yeah, I think it could go like with that way. That'd be a good decision. Just yeah, they need to do something with Cody because I don't know. It just feels like we just backtracked tonight. I don't know if you feel that way too.
No, I feel like we definitely regressed. Like when Cody got laid out and Brody Lee won, that was like a huge moment. Like I think that was one of the most important moments in AEW history, not only because it was Brody Lee's championship win, but like the fact that Dark Order got legitimized as a faction and they destroyed the entire Nightmare family. Cody was
Yeah,
gone in kayfabe, and then he came back, won the title. He had black hair for a couple weeks, and now he's like back to normal. It just feels like it's a step back, and it's also a step in the wrong direction. Like I also think we're getting too much Orange Cassidy as well. Like I really enjoy him, but he's getting a little overexposed here, and I was saying earlier they're gonna beat this like Orange Cassidy TNT title challenger thing to a pulp, no pun intended. But
yeah,
yeah,
definitely starting to get stale with like them just reusing him over and over again.
and there's tons of guys who could be challenging for the title too. Like I don't know, like Brody Lee could have a rematch. Eddie Kingston, like you could even throw any of the the Bros, like could be in there too.
Yeah, yeah.
I honestly thought that we were heading towards like a Hangman, Adam Page versus Brody feud before Cody came back, which I would have enjoyed, but plans change, I guess.
Yeah, it just didn't make sense to me how Cody came back, black hair, black and red, whole new look. But then when he came out tonight, blonde hair, and then I don't know if you noticed, but the Titantron went from black and red, like kind of back to the OG colors of the Nightmare family.
Yeah,
So I was
I don't
just
know.
like, man, we're back to square one here. Like, what was the point of all this?
Yeah, I think tonight was the most frustrated I've ever been, honestly, after like an AEW Dynamite episode, just because we were riding such a high for the past few weeks where we had Brody Lee and a really like Brody Lee as almost a focal point of AEW. Mox is always really good. The tag team title picture is looking good. And then all of a sudden we're back to Cody wins the title. Orange Cassidy's getting his third crack now in
In
2 weeks.
less than 2 months, like he's getting
Yeah,
his. Oh my.
at the TNT title. And yeah, just I know that they had like to do long term booking in AEW, and I'm sure that they have a plan, but I don't know if this is the right plan for them in the short run here. Especially
Yeah,
there's a pay per view coming up in 3 weeks. Why are they having? They're gonna have a TNT title match, which they have to build around in 3 weeks, and they're gonna have another match coming up in 2 weeks. Where are we going here?
yeah. But yeah, we're gonna see where this goes. Then I guess in 2 weeks, you can
Yeah,
see our thoughts on what's gonna happen in 2 weeks over on the intermission website. But for now, we can get into the next segment of the show, which was the AEW Women's Title match. Hikaru Shida defending against Big Swole. You kind of had a feeling that Big Swole was gonna come out on top, but obviously that didn't happen. Shida retained. But what made you think Big Swole was gonna come out on top tonight?
I kind of thought Big Swole was gonna come out on top just because the AEW women's division it needs something. Like I feel bad for these women because for the past 2 weeks they've been put in a position where they're advertised like this match is advertised as a 60-minute title match, and there's literally no way like anyone is buying that the AEW women are about to have a 60-minute match. And it's not because people don't like women's wrestling, it's because the way that they've portrayed the division so far, like you can only use the crutch that they're depleted for so long because they've been trying to build stars, and they kept Sheeta off of TV for like 3 weeks,
Yeah,
3 or 4 weeks after All Out and after her. her deal with Thunder Rosa ended. And then last week they just announced, oh, every title's on the line, so you might as well throw the women's championship out there. And I would have, if they would have said last week that they were going to build to this match at Full Gear, I would have been okay with that instead of throwing it on the anniversary show where it very clearly didn't get a lot of time. It was a sloppy match. It wasn't anyone's like
Yeah.
no one had like great things to say about it, and it was like too bad that they were put in that position. But I thought if they put the title on Big Swole tonight, she could carry it for like 3 weeks in her first reign, get an underdog win, and then Britt Baker, who is very clearly like the next face of the women's division, to get the title at Full Gear and just have like a monster run because she's the most entertaining star in the division. But it didn't happen tonight, and I pray that we get a feud for Shida, that she gets to build herself around for 3 weeks so that she can have that showcase match at Full Gear.
Yeah, it just feels like they're wasting their women's division, and they could do so much more with it. Like, they just kind of gets pushed to the sidelines when clearly they have some talent there. I think they should have. They missed a big opportunity there. I think Thunder Rosa, they should have signed her, but maybe she'll be back in the near future to sign. Unless is she still signed to NWA, or is she?
Yeah, I think she said before that she's NWA exclusive, which I think is probably why.
That's why
she's not an AEW. But even so, like I would have been okay too with like Serena Deeb getting a championship match built around like Shida wanted any challenger who would face her.
Yeah,
Serena is like an underdog right now. Had a great match that got her signed. Had another pretty good match last week with Swole. These are two veterans going against each other based on like mutual respect, and then Serena as an underdog. It probably would have been a pretty decent pay-per-view match, but yeah. The women's division is lacking, and I think that they need to care more about it, especially heading into year 2.
And then after the match, it seemed like they were kind of hinting towards Nyla Rose versus Shida at Full Gear, which I'm not really into because we just that was who she beat for the title. They've had other matches. It just feels like they're doing the repeat thing when Britt Baker is right there, just waiting to take her spot as the AEW Women's Champion. And she needs to be on top because she's been carrying that division for pretty much the whole pandemic, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was reading a stat the other day that like since Nyla Rose got Vicky Guerrero as a manager, she's had like a total of like only 1:30, I think, of speaking time on TV since then, which is super weird because what's the point of pairing her with a manager and like portraying her as this dominant force if they're not gonna build her up to be like a killer in the ring. But I would be okay with Nyla challenging again just because I think it would inject a much needed like force into the women's division where they're going to be on TV every week and Nyla can cut a solid promo. And like I just feel bad for Shida because her reign has been pretty lackluster, and it's not her fault. It's more is like one of those things where it's not her fault because like she's getting horrible booking and like getting pushed to the side, but like no one forgets about her, which is weird because like Kenny Omega's had a huge hand in the women's division. He's like really good friends with Shida, and you'd think that like he would push her more. And like Shida's English isn't great, but they've had no fans up until now. Like why haven't they had her just like throw her into the fire and like cut promos in front of no one for a while and get comfortable on the mic? Because like when she came out tonight, the fans like weren't very. I don't know if you noticed it, but it wasn't a huge ovation. Like
no, I did. It was pretty quiet.
Here's our women's champion. Like let's give her like a crazy round of applause, like, which is a problem heading into year 2. And they even said she hasn't lost in like over 200 days, but it wasn't like she came out of the crowd and the crowd was like, oh, here's our fighting champion who hasn't lost in over 200 days.
Yeah, they need to do something. But yeah, I definitely expect if they do Nyla Rose against Shida again, Nyla Rose will come out a 2-time women's champion.
I wouldn't mind a multi-woman match as well. Like I know we had pitched the ladder match for the TNT title, but if there's any feud that they could like realistically do, like just throw all the top women's division competitors in there, it might as well be the women's match just so they can sort of start fresh in the next few months.
That's true. Yeah. All right. So yeah, up next, before we get to the main event, actually, we had like a small little package about Sean Spears and Scorpio Sky. Pretty random feud to come out of nowhere. I didn't really see it coming, but I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, I mean, Sky, I really hope Sky gets back into the TNT title picture. So if he's going to have a feud with Sean Spears, it'll help him get there because I can't see Spears going over, but
yeah,
I'm okay with that. Anything that gets, like I enjoy, a lot of people don't enjoy Sean Spears in AEW, but I've enjoyed his work over the last few months, and I think he's pretty solid in ring. And Scorpio Sky's an athletic freak in nature, so you might as well put the two together because they'll probably have a pretty good match.
It gets two guys that have kind of been lost in the shuffle, some TV time, so.
Yeah, exactly. Like Spears is also another guy who he has a history with Cody. You could have thrown them in a match together and it probably went pretty good. Even Sky could have had a rematch instead of like throwing Orange Cassidy out there again. But
yeah, AEW booking, we never know.
Yeah.
But then now we just have the main event, which in my opinion was the match of the night. which
Yeah, it
throughout the
wasn't hard
night,
to top. Wasn't hard to get match of the night on a night
yeah.
like this.
But throughout the show, to start it off, Archer attacked Mox pretty early on in the show. Mox later returned the favor, attacking Archer, which made Tony Khan ultimately make this a no disqualification match for the AEW Championship. And another thing to factor in here was on commentary was Eddie Kingston along with the Lucha Bros. But yeah, the match itself, Archer and Moxley were out there. They wanted to kill each other. It seemed like they were going at each other some pretty heavy duty spots with like some just kind of like a brawl. But I enjoyed it quite a bit. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I enjoyed the match. It was pretty hard hitting, and I liked at the time when the finish happened. It was a roll up after the blackout, I think, is Archer's finisher. And at the time, I didn't like it, but I think what it shows is that Mox has been in so many matches over the past few months as champion. His paradigm shift finisher didn't work twice, and he like just got by in this match, which also leaves the door open for a potential like another confrontation between these two.
Yeah.
But overall, it was a pretty good match. Lance Archer came out to a new theme song. People were split on it. I saw online, but it's kind of too bad that Archer. He's another guy who sort of feels like lost in the shuffle a bit to me. Like he came in, had a huge debut, lost against Cody for the TNT title, and then they plugged him in for this championship match. It did its purpose, but he's a guy who I would like to see dominate more going forward. And if they just need like a meaningful singles feud for him that doesn't revolve around the title, because both of his feuds so far have been for titles. So
Yeah. They really tried to protect him with this loss. But at the
Mhm.
end of the day, it's still his second loss, like lost feud, it seems. Like just even though
yeah.
they're trying to protect him, he still feels like he's getting underutilized.
And I remember when Mox like beat Brody Lee, it was a similar sort of thing where they made Brody Lee look strong. But I think I liked the finish to Mox versus Brody better, and I thought that Brody looked strong. And then here it's just like we know Archer is supposed to look strong after, but does he really actually look strong coming out of this?
Yeah, I agree with you. And then, yeah, when Moxley ended up finishing it off, but after the match, I don't know. I didn't understand the whole point of having, like, I understood the point of Kingston coming out, but Archer kind of just felt like awkward in the situation. I don't know if you felt that way too. Like, he kind of attacked him, but then does their feud end there? Like, it just kind of left the door open, but it
I
just
think
felt
what I
weird.
liked about it was when Eddie sent his guys, he said go help him, and I thought he was talking about like he's gonna send them
I
to
agree
help
with
Archer
you.
beat up Mox. And then when was it Phoenix
Yeah, it
or
was
was it
Phoenix.
yeah, Phoenix hit Archer with a chair, and I sort of said, "Whoa, like are they gonna like make up here?" But it was really good heel work, I guess, because Eddie doesn't want Mox to get beat up by Lance Archer after because he wants him fresh, which is weird. Like if he went on it because right after this happened, he turned around and, like he beat down Mox, and we're all assuming it's gonna lead to a match at Full Gear. But if you're heading that way and Eddie was gonna beat down Mox anyways, like why wouldn't he just let Archer beat him up instead? Like if he it's more in his favor.
Yeah. It was a little weird, but I did like the part where like yeah they were building up that Kingston and Mox are gonna reunite, and Moxley you mentioned it to me too. Moxley was doing an amazing job selling the
Yeah,
match he
Moxie
just
like
went through.
sold, which is also I guess another part of like it makes Archer look really good that like even in the post match promo like Eddie was saying let's all raise our hands together and like the Lucha Bros were going to raise hands and, like Moxley wouldn't even like raise his arm because he's so tired after the match.
Yeah,
But it's like those little details that are cool. But then obviously Eddie turned around, like smacked Moxley. The promo was good, but it felt a little like mistimed because they were going off the air and like Moxley's lying
yeah,
on the ground and Eddie's just like, I never lost, I never tapped. Like we've heard it, but I thought they would have like cued his music or something like just to like
yeah. It was a little.
go home on something like that. But yeah, I'm really excited. I hope that they do like because last year at Full Gear they did a lights out match between Kenny and Moxley, and I guess since it's for the title, they can't really do like an unsanctioned title match because that wouldn't make sense. But
Yeah,
I'm hoping they do like a no disqualification or an I quit match because that would be awesome too.
that would
One of
be
those like hard
yeah.
hitting,
I can see them just absolutely destroying each other in a match like that.
which is interesting too because um like Jericho hasn't had a rematch yet for the AEW title,
That's
and
very
Eddie
true.
Kingston's coming in hot for a rematch, which is it's something I thought about a lot during the show. Like, will Jericho actually ever say, "Oh, I'm the champ"? Like, because there's no automatic rematches in AEW, so it makes me wonder if Jericho's ever actually gonna like work his way up and try and challenge again. But this is one of those situations where the fans want to see it. We know it'll probably be a really good hard hitting match, so they might as well like make it a rematch because like people love Eddie Kingston, which is also a super crazy story over the past few months. Just like Eddie, who would have thought that last year when AEW started that the 1 year anniversary show would end with Eddie Kingston cutting a promo on Jon Moxley as the champion.
Yeah, one thing we also talked about in the past on like our weekly series is that Moxley just what they're doing is so good with his storytelling of this title reign is that he keeps getting more and more beat down. And like if he does the next pay-per-view and ends up being an I Quit match, I'm assuming he comes out on top over Kingston, but that just shows he's even more worn down. It just keeps setting him up to where when he finally loses to Omega, we all know it's going to be Omega, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
It's
knock on wood because we need that to happen.
But it's gonna show that like Moxley went through to hell and back holding that title for over a year. And he's been a great champion in my opinion. I haven't been sick of him yet. He hasn't gone stale. I don't know if you have, but for me,
no, I haven't grown sick of him, and I felt kind of bad for him at the beginning because he got this huge win after leaving WWE in the pretty like public way. He won at Revolution. It was a huge moment, and then 2 weeks later, boom, like pandemic, no fans. And at the beginning, I was kind of like, because his first title defense I think was against Jake Hager, which was a pretty like, it was a horrible like, it was not a great match at all, like the empty arena. But then he had a great defense against Brody. I think Darby challenged him too recently.
Yeah, they had a good match too.
They had a good match, and there's like the storytelling where every match he gets more and more worn down. Like against MJF at All Out, he wasn't supposed to use a paradigm shift, but MJF like lasted for so long he capitalized when the ref wasn't looking because Wardlow messed up throwing the ring in. He hit the paradigm shift. Tonight, the paradigm shift didn't work twice, and he had to do the roll up. So I think eventually we're gonna see like he'll either lose the title because he got dominated by a better opponent, or just because he had nothing left in the tank because his reign had been so long and like people have been watching and scouting him and saying like, oh, here's how we can beat Jon Moxley. And it'll also be a huge rub too because I think what we'll see is Omega will win the Eliminator, the big Eliminator tournament to be the #1 contender. I don't know if they'll drag him versus Mox out until February because that's a long way away. If he wins it in November at the pay-per-view, it's kind of a long way away, but it'd be a nice build because they had a really good feud the first time. And then they can have a proper match where Moxley loses the title at the pay-per-view where he won it, which would be pretty interesting. But
yeah,
it seems like a long time to drag out the title feud. They might as well just like – I would rather see a change on TV just because like it's a historic reign almost, and like you want to get people seeing it on TV for free, and then Omega's first defense, people be like, oh, who's he going to defend against? Let's pay for the pay-per-view. But it would work either way. It'd
be a pretty crazy story though on like a Dynamite to have just Omega go over and be the new champion. It's something you wouldn't expect, but I want to see it.
It's because I think we're so used to seeing like big matches take place on pay-per-views and never on TV. But it would be pretty good. Not pretty good, but like it would be pretty neat for AEW to say, hey, let's have the longest reign like champion in our company's history who's had almost 1 year reign like lose on a TV episode.
Yeah. Let Mox and Omega go out there for like 40 minutes on a Dynamite, tear the house down, and Omega comes out.
That's also a situation where they could have a title match, have a draw, and then they're like, well, let's run it back at Full Gear because Mox is not Full Gear, Revolution. Yeah, like Mox is a fighting champion. Omega obviously wants it. Yeah. Might as well like put them at it. But yeah, I think it's kind of weird to me because Omega like said before he wants to be a singles wrestler and we all think he's going to win the championship, but he needs to like do stuff in the singles division where we can say, oh, here's our next champion. So I'm hoping that in this Eliminator, he puts on like 3 really good matches where we can say, okay, here is a guy we're confident in that is going to take the belt. Like the Kenny Omega best belt machine is back.
Yeah, if we look at that bracket though, in the first round, do you remember who was fighting? It's
Joey Janela in the first round.
That should be a banger.
Which will be a banger. I think next round is Phoenix or Pentagon, which is like he had a great match in AAA for the AAA Mega Championship and to win that, which like they don't talk about on TV ever anymore. But yeah, that was like those two will have a great match, and then the final will probably either be Wardlow or Hangman. Maybe even a surprise Jungle Boy run.
Oh, we can only hope. We can only hope, man. But yeah,
but either way, like it's a really good opportunity.
Matches, that just write money on them all over them. That can just steal the show.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for Kenny to sort of solidify himself as like he's back in singles action. This is the best wrestler in the world. Let's show new fans why people call him that, and let's make the old fans like, here we go, like Kenny's back.
Yeah, the cleaner's coming back.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, that pretty much wraps up the 1 year anniversary show of Dynamite and our very first video version of Diffusing Dynamite. So yeah, that's it. We'll be back on intermission next week with our written series. We'll be back for another video sometime in the near future. Stay tuned for that. But for now, yeah, Gavin, do you want to plug anything? Your Twitter, Instagram?
Just follow me on Twitter at Gavin77X, and Instagram is the same handle. And of course, check out our work on the intermission. Joseph and I have been grinding Diffusing Dynamite for a while, and it's pretty fun. So go check out our series.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Jake Casciaro at JCASCIAROOO. On Instagram at Jake Casciaro, only one O on that one. Yeah, follow our work on the intermission. And then, yeah, that's about it. Me and Gavin also host a wrestling podcast. You can check that out, Over Being Over. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you next time.